you ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 30th episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Here's the Storm. So I'm your host, Linus Daz Kilius, and I'm joined today by Mystic. How's it going, Mystic? We'll explain the silence shortly. But while he's doing that, I'll introduce the third guy, Liqiud. Liqiud, how's it going, bud?
It's going great, Daz.
Did you catch the third guy reference is the question.
Yes, I did, and I chuckled. I'm already laughing because of Mystic, but yes, I definitely caught the third guy. And you know what? I'm happy to be compared to Cawthon Luck for third guy meme. I'm all right with that.
Just to let everyone know why Mystic's having a problem figuring out how to respond to a simple question like, how's it going, Mystic? He actually lost last week's HOTS debate. The last week's HOTS debate was Mystic versus Liqiud, and they were debating that game knowledge is more important than mechanical skill. Now, Liqiud was arguing the side that mechanical skill is more important, and Mystic was arguing the side that game knowledge is more important. And Liqiud won with 59% of the popular vote in what turns out was probably our most popular debate yet, at least on Reddit, and it incited quite a bit of discussion there. Thanks for all those who joined in that chat. But Mystic, as a punishment, must talk in the third person for the entire show. So hopefully this doesn't take up too much of his brain power because we do need him to talk about HOTS as well. So Mystic, how's it going, sir?
Mystic is good.
That's all we needed. I
actually have a question for Mystic. So Mystic, the debate's over now. So nothing else matters. Which side would you have come down on normally?
Mystic feels like it is a little bit of both sides here. You can't just have one without the other.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's the fun thing about these debates. I've done debates in the past too, like the MMR Hell debate is one that I was thinking of in particular, where I argued the side that I definitely didn't agree with, but that's part of the challenge. You have to pick a side of the debate, and it's not necessarily one that you do agree with. So it's always interesting, and just remember that too, that whoever's arguing their side isn't because they feel strongly about it necessarily. It's just the side of the debate we chose for them. Before we start the show, though, I want to thank all our supporters over at patreon.com/the Nexus Trolls. The show's always going to be free, but if you're looking for a way to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/the Nexus Trolls and support us there. We really appreciate the help. So you guys want to jump right in? It's a pretty light news week, surprisingly. We were sitting here, usually we sit here on Mondays, a couple days before the show, and we're just waiting for a balance patch or something to like fill our show notes to have something to talk about. But this week, Monday rolled around, Tuesday rolled around, Wednesday morning rolled around, nothing really new to report. So this is actually a good opportunity because we get to talk about some discussion topics that I think we've been putting off for a few weeks. So luckily there's no patch notes to talk about, but we do have a little bit of news. We're going to have Liquiud's Esports Corner, and we also have Dr. Daz's Science Lab Mystics Shakedown later in the show as well. But that being said, let's start with the news.
Someday, this will make a great story.
So Liqiud has a little bit of an announcement. It's Liquiud's baby, so I think I'm going to let him take it from here for this part of it.
Cool. All right, so I talk a lot of esports on this show, all focused around Heroes of the Storm, but I tend to get, I think the term is long-winded, and if you ask me a question, I will definitely go down that tangent and down that rabbit hole and just keep on going. We have lost 30, 40 minutes down a simple question from a guest occasionally. So, Daz and I were talking, and I was talking to Bags over at the Weekly Blizz, and said, hey, what would be cool if we started just a show that just focused on Heroes of the Storm esports. Heroes of the Sports, that works too. Excuse me. So, talked to him, and we are actually going to launch Troll and HGC next week, immediately after the Nexus Trolls. So it'll be Bags and I going over esports. Occasionally other people will join us. Just strictly around HGC, or not HGC only, but just strictly around Blizzard Heroes of the Storm 8. Oh my god. I'm butchering this right now, guys. I'm sorry. All right. So it will strictly be focused around Heroes of the Storm esports, whether that's Chair League, Heroes Hype, HGC, Open Division, all sorts of amateur tournaments. We're going to try and get some stuff from Southeast Asia, Latin America, ANZ, like really just covering Heroes of the Storm esports globally, something that really hasn't been done yet. Lots of people talk about different things. I think tonight Town Hall Heroes got actually pretty close to covering just HGC in general, and they have in the past too, but nothing that focuses on like some of that little more remote stuff. So we're gonna cover all of that, which means it'll be highlights in Liquid's Esports Corner here, and we'll be focusing more in depth on stuff with Troll and HGC.
Which is great. And by the way, this was Liquid's idea, not
yes,
mine.
This was not Daz.
I did not roster apocalypse Liquid and force him out of his esports corner or anything. We decided there's just so much content to cover. Liquid said, hey, you know what? I think this is worthy of having its own show, and I definitely agree. And Bags is a great person. We had him on a couple of shows ago who's just as passionate as Liquid about this stuff. To be covering it there with them. So I think it's going to be a great show to be, to expand the troll network, so to speak. So it should be pretty interesting. So keep an eye out for that. So we're starting next week, right, Liquid?
Yep, next week, right after this show.
Perfect. You might be asking, well, what's going on with after show games, guys? Well, we're gonna try and maybe just have like a regular segment, like on a weekly basis, where we do after show games that we stream with the viewers. It might not be after shows specifically. Maybe we'll do it after the HGC trolling HGC. We'll still have to figure that out. So if you have any comments on that, just feel free to email us at podcast@thenexustrolls.com or tweet at us, and we can take your feedback on when we should schedule those. Also, another thing Liquid noted as well and put in the news here, so let him take that one away as well, about the welcome bundle.
All right, so my wife recently started playing with 2.0, and I said, you know what's going to be great? I know you want gems, but they're going to launch this welcome bundle, and as soon as Diva drops, it's supposed to be out. Diva dropped last week. Welcome bundle wasn't there. I was disappointed because I wanted to buy my wife the welcome bundle. Popped out on Tuesday. There it was. Great little bundle. You can buy it once per region. It's $5. Which in and of itself is a great deal because you get 800 gems, and the regular cost of gems, you can only get 600 for $4.99. So for 1 penny more, you automatically get 200 gems, plus you get a welcome chest, which guarantees a hero in it, plus a rare chest, plus an epic chest, plus a 7-day stim pack, plus a zebra mount. Like, the value in this is wonderful. And if you're like me, and you have all the heroes, save your welcome chest for when a new hero comes out. That doesn't guarantee you're going to get the new hero. You may roll and you may get a hero you already have and get a dupe and get your shards. But at least there's a chance that when you open that welcome chest, you'll get one of the new heroes. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming like epic and veteran chests we've had in the past, if you re-roll it, you're going to be guaranteed to get the hero in the re-roll as well. So you would have a few chances, I guess, to re-roll for that new hero as well. I imagine new heroes in the game. Have we seen yet? Like, are the new heroes always going to be legendary to start off with? Do we know?
It would not surprise me based on, if you think back to their pricing model, right? The 15K / brand new hero, which is what I think it used to be like $10, was always at that price point, which correlates to a legendary, right? And if you look at what was common, rare, epic, legendary, it kind of follows that gold price mechanism that they've built in. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were always going to remain legendary.
Yeah. So still a great value for your money, even if you've got everything in the game so far, just for the gems alone, like Liquid was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Buy it for the gems, if nothing else. If you're ever going to buy gems, or, and this is another important thing, if you've never made a real money purchase in 2.0, buy this. Because not only will it get you all of that, it will also include the Starry Mystery Horsey Horse. The little, looks like, man, all I can equate it to is back in WoW there was a raid within, man, I'm totally going blank now, where you fought this celestial being and you were in space and, like, there were stars everywhere. That's what that horse reminds me of. So you get that automatically by spending real money in 2.0. So for $5, you could potentially get 2 mounts.
Doesn't remind you of the background of the Nexus Trolls logo?
The stars aren't quite the same because it's like black instead of bluish purple.
Wow.
I mean the background, not the.
Not splitting
I know.
hairs here or anything.
Come on, man! I gotta be right.
You know what? On that note, well, actually, you know what? First, I have a question for Mystic. Are you going to buy this welcome bundle, Mystic?
Mystic thinks it is a good bundle for its value. However, Mystic thinks that he will not spend money on this bundle.
I feel like we should be calling you Yoda almost the way that you're talking
Right?
today. We should get you to like swap your whatever the subjective and the objective part of the sentences as well. That should have been part of the
Spend money on this, Mystic will not do.
Yeah, there you go. Liquid's on it. Okay, Liquid, ready for your esports corner, bud?
I am, man.
Hey yo, how you doing? It's time for Liquid's Esports Corner. That's right. And you're gonna want to stick around for this.
Take it away, Liquid.
All right. So this week we got a little bit of drama. In fact, I said right after we got ready to start the show, man, hashtag NA drama would have been perfect for this episode name, but that's cool. So, a couple of things have happened recently. NA roster apocalypse has begun. GFE has removed both Crowan and Equinox from the team. I've said this a couple of times when people have asked me what I think is going to happen. I expected Equinox to leave GFE. He's not a tank player, and they were forcing him into the tank position when the, hey, we're 4 flexes in the support GFE plan didn't work out. So I fully expected him to leave. I was a little surprised Crowan left. But the more I read about it and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Excuse me. Trent Esports wrote up a great article kind of going through the GFE roster shuffle. We have that linked in our show notes. Check that out. Great read. Also, there's a rumor that K1 Pro and King Caffeine may be joining GFE. Now, it's a rumor, but reading the Reddit thread and I went back and I watched McIntyre's stream where he was disappointed in what was happening with B-Step. I could absolutely see that maybe K1 Pro or King Caffeine or both could join GFE.
Now, does this make GFE a better team in general, would you say?
So that's hard. There's a lot of... Somebody in Reddit pointed something out that I actually really appreciated. There are a lot of, like, amateur teams out there right now that actually would fill in nicely there. That, like, you could pick up a Warrior player from one of those teams. From a team that was in Open Division and maybe just didn't quite qualify. So I don't know that you need to pick up a King Caffeine and a K1 Pro. But I think if you read the Trent Esports write-up and you read the Reddit post, you can see kind of where you get a lot of synergy between bringing K1 Pro and King Caffeine into the team. So it's very possible that may greatly increase their chances of winning going forward. Also, another clip, again, posted in our show notes. Team Freedom is apparently letting Insomnia go. Not confirmed. Neither Team Freedom has actually publicly announced that. And Insomnia's Twitter page still says he plays for Team Freedom. But there was, the clip will show to you a point on his stream where he was saying he was no longer playing with Team Freedom. So take it for what it's worth. Maybe we're a little early. Maybe we're not. We'll see how that works out. But the last thing I'm going to point out for the hashtag NA drama, Zoya on Town Hall Heroes, I was watching right before our show. I had to stop so that we could get started. Totally letting it be known that he thinks there are a number of problems with NA. Zoya, no stranger to being a little controversial and definitely saying the first words that come to his mind, pointed out that team members not showing up for scrims, grudges between teams, and grudges between players are always going to hold NA back, and he's right. I think the one thing I agree with, and Zoya and I don't agree with on a lot of topics, but one of the things I definitely agree with is if you're on a team that's an HCC, or even if you're on an open division team that's really trying to make a run for HCC, like, it's your job at this point. You need to put the time in. You need to put the hours in. You need to be available for scrims. You need to show up and do scrims. He called somebody out, and I'm not going to call them out because I don't have firsthand knowledge, but he called out one member of one team that didn't show up for scrims because he just decided he didn't want to. Well, if I just decided that I didn't want to go to work one day, like my boss would be all over me, right? Like, this is your job, do your job. And that's going to be something that holds us back in NA. And it will continue to hold us back. EU doesn't have that problem. Korea definitely doesn't have that problem. So if we're ever going to hope to compete at that high of a level, like, we got to get it together and we got to start taking this stuff seriously. And until we do, we're always going to be behind.
So is that one of the arguments for grabbing some players out of the amateur scene then too? Because I guess they haven't been in the scene and they probably have that extra motivation because they know they need to, like, you know, impress when they get to that stage?
I would say that's part of it. Another part of it would be just bringing new blood into the scene, right? So if we're going to put King Caffeine and K1 Pro back together with Fan, okay, so now all we're missing is Kenma, right? Like, does that, and you know, or Dunk Train, or like, does it make sense to go back and try and like recapture the old days? I don't think so. I think it's time to start bringing new blood in. Like, look, everybody's a quality player that's in HCC right now. I'm not trying to minimize anybody's accomplishments, but we have not won a major international in like 18 months. Dude, it's time for us to start looking at new blood. And if you're not looking at new blood, what are you doing?
So if you take talent out of the like HGC Open, for instance, or the amateur scene, are you expecting to have a little bit of a learning curve and mold that player ultimately into the player you want them to be? Or is there enough talent there that they could just jump right in and fill the slot at the professional level?
That's a hard question. So there are a couple of teams that I think are close enough that the learning curve wouldn't be too great. And sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing so much tonight. Let me switch to water.
Switching from what? What were you drinking before?
I was on Mountain Dew. So I'm switching to water. So there's a number of teams that have players that I believe are close enough to professional level they could slide right in, right? But if you look at, like, if you're not Tempo Storm and you're not Team 8 right now, right? And you're not the bottom two, No Tomorrow or an Eventic, you have lots of time. Hire your new players now, right? And if they're amateurs, you can get them now, right? Unless they're on imported support or even in death, you can pick those players up right now because they're already done with HGC until Phase 2 starts, right? So you can pick them up now. You can start scrimming with them now, or at least do tryouts. And for all we know, GFE is running tryouts right now with those guys, right? The K1 Pro and the King Caffeine thing, those are both rumors. We don't actually know what they're actively doing. Now, if any of you happen to be watching and you happen to be trying out with GFE, drop me a line. I'd love to talk to you. Just Twitter, my DMs are open at LiqiudGG. So, you know, it's hard to tell. We'll have to see how it goes. I definitely think it's time to get some new blood into HCC, into like HCC Premier League teams. Now, whether that happens because imported support and even in death kick out an Eventic and No Tomorrow, or established teams are bringing in amateurs, I'm good with either or both, to be honest. So, all right, moving on. Mid-season brawl teams and groups are all set. It's going to be a great tournament. We'll cover it more next week. I didn't want to go too in-depth to it. Maybe if we end up with like a bunch of time at the end of the episode, I can go through and give you guys my thoughts. But it looks like it's going to be a great tournament. Tempo Storm will do okay. I do not expect them to overperform and like really take the tournament. I also think Team 8 will surprise a couple people just because they're Team 8 and Glaurung is crazy at like some of his strats and some of how he wants to do things. And his team like believes in him completely. So when he says jump, they're all in the air before they say anything. So I think that'll be interesting. So we'll have to see what happens with that. There is an East versus West All-Star game being planned for MSB. The Blizz Heroes account tweeted it out. I'll go ahead and I need to dig that up and add it to our show notes, but you can click on that and go ahead and pick your All-Stars. Vote for your All-Stars so that we can have an East versus West All-Star game at the Mid-Season Brawl. Mid-Season Brawl, by the way, is like 12 days. It's like June 10th through the 22nd. So they're spreading it out so they can have a number of games, which is pretty cool. I like that, but it means a lot of early mornings for some of us.
Can we write in Rich to play for the West?
I wish, right? Like, Oh my god. In fact, I disagreed with how they made us vote because there were two people from the same screen that I wanted to vote for, but you can only pick one, and I was like, really? Come on, like, it's not that hard. Bakery, though, someone replying to Bakery hooking me up, so now I have the link and I can put it in the show notes right now. I love when that happens. All right. So, moving on. We have, I wanted to give our listeners just an idea. Recently, the people at Blizzard have come under fire because pros were playing too far back on patches, which was annoying viewers because they were like, wait, why are you on this patch? We've been off this patch for like months. I don't understand why that hero is behaving that way. Why isn't Uther getting drafted? Isn't Uther great now? Things like that. So they have revised their patch schedule for all of their competitions. And with that news coming out, the Crucible, which is this weekend and is going to be awesome, is going to be played on the Diva patch. I cannot wait. I'm so overexcited. However, Diva will not be allowed, but Diva patch for everything else. So, pretty cool. Great write-up by my good buddy Rye Baker over in Reddit. Link in the show notes. He went over not only the Crucible teams with some like real in-depth reporting that like, if you're interested in this near the level I am, go check it out, because he went into each team, players for each team, who's big, who's not, like map rotation choices and like which team favors which maps and which maps you should ban. Now, he personally thinks that the Open Division teams aren't going to be able to take the Premier League teams. I don't share that belief with him, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, but we'll have to see how that works out. All right, so Crucible is this weekend. Now, China, of course, is probably going to be Monday, Tuesday. I haven't actually seen the schedule for that, so that's not in here yet. But Korea, EU, and NA all playing this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. There's a game for each region on Saturday and a game for each region on Sunday. They will all be best of sevens. In Korea, we have on this. All right, I'm going to go over the Saturday games first. All of these are in the show notes, by the way. All of them will be on twitch.tv/BlizzHeroes. Okay. For Korea, we have Team Raven versus RRR. Should be interesting. I think the Korean teams are both in a lot of danger. For EU, we have Synergy versus Team Zealot. Team Zealot was the #1 seed going into Open Division, but Team Gang Gang, led by BKB, just came in and did crazy stuff. So Team Zealot's a strong team. They should be able to take Synergy, but that'll be a good game to watch. And then for NA on Saturday, we have Naventic versus Imported Support. Now, if you believe everything Zoya says, and I have no reason to dispute this, Naventic is a mess and has not been practicing at all for going into the Crucible. If you're going into the Crucible and your HGC Premier League spot is on the line and your salary is on the line, like, I'd be practicing. But apparently they're not, and they're even swapping some roles up. So, looks good for Imported Support. We'll have to see how that works out. Sunday games. Sunday. Blossom versus Cluster for Korea. Blossom not doing so well in the Premier League, so I expect them to be taken out. B Genius versus Team Gang Gang. B Genius is definitely going down to Team Gang Gang. That's my... You can quote me on that one. Guaranteed my boy BKB is coming back into HCC Premier League. Can't wait to see that happen. And then NA, No Tomorrow versus Even in Death. This one's a toss-up for me because there are times when No Tomorrow plays great, and then there are times where No Tomorrow seems to forget which buttons to push. I'm not sure what No Tomorrow we're going to see on Sunday, and it changes game to game. It's not even like a series, right? So some days they do really good, some days they do really bad, some days they do good and bad in the same day. So we'll have to see what happens. Even in Death was doing good, though, in Open Division, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'm super excited. Like, the Crucible, to me, is like this great thing. We're taking amateur teams that compete in Open Division, agree or disagree with how they got out of Open Division into the top two, and DB Smiley and I both kind of agree on this. Like, points didn't mean anything. All you had to do is have enough points to make top 16, and then you could just breeze your way through, which isn't fair to the people that have played week in, week out there, but it is what it is. Amateur teams with a chance to bust into HGC Premier League and earn their spot, that's huge to me, and I'm super excited. I cannot wait to see what happens this weekend.
I think a lot of people are going to be watching this event more than your average HGC week 2 because of the stakes here. And not so much for, I mean, obviously the premier teams are looking on the outside, looking to drop down. It's more, I think that everyone likes the fact that these amateur swan song stories could potentially come and take them out. And I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for, well, I'm going to quote unquote say is the underdog here, the open teams. So I think there's going to be a lot of support for them and not so much for the premier teams that found themselves in the bottom two.
I agree. I think that's how it's going to go down. And I think a lot of people are going to watch just because it's like, holy cow, like, here's somebody that's, being promoted, right? Like, that's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, and people just as much like to watch the fall from grace as well, and that's what we're going to have potentially with some of these Premier League teams dropping out. What do you think is going to happen to some of these teams if they do drop out of Premier? Are they just going to disband altogether, or do you think they're just going to try and make a comeback for next season?
You know what? It's hard to tell. So, if you look at teams like Naventic, I suspect Naventic will have an interesting thing happen to them. So Naventic is obviously owned by somebody, right? So I don't think Naventic as a team itself is not going to go away. The roster may change drastically, and then they'll have to make a run through Open Division. Or if, let's say, Naventic loses, Naventic themselves may drop that roster and try to sponsor someone like Even in Death or, Imported Support, right? Naventic's just a sponsor. They can go wherever they want to go.
So Naventic could drop out and be replaced by Naventic, potentially.
Yes, potentially, right? It would be a little weird, but it's no different than, Misfits selling, the guys in Team Liquid to Team Liquid, right? So Hasu Obs and all those guys were Misfits in the EU, now they're Team Liquid. It's no different, right? So it's hard to tell with teams that don't have true ownership. Who knows how it's going to go and what's going to happen. Same thing is true for No Tomorrow. If they lose, they could, the roster could stick together, but they could be playing as a different team after that, right? They could no longer be No Tomorrow. Maybe they're, me and my boys, or whatever, right? Like Mystic's team of misfits, right? Like it could be anything. They may just no longer be No Tomorrow. So it's hard to tell. I think, looking at the teams, I think we might see some roster swaps from those teams. Blossom and Team Raven did absolutely horrible in Korea, so I expect some serious changes there. But in EU, I mean, they tried to be competitive. They can drop down into Open Division and try to earn their spot back in. I think Naventic is where we'll see the big changes, and I hope we will, because Naventic, I feel like I'm harping on this, and look, man, I know my mechanics aren't good enough to be a pro, but come on, and I feel almost like Kenma and Zuna get blamed for everything, but there's clearly an issue with that team, and they're the two people that haven't changed for a long time. Since they were Bob Ross Fan Club, they have not changed. So if you've changed all the other pieces, you're still struggling, and you have the same two pieces that have been here the whole time. Maybe those two pieces are the problem.
Well, maybe some of the stuff, I feel like as soon as the Crucible's over and the teams that do get bumped down, you might see a little bit more airing of the dirty laundry on your Twitches and Twitters, like that we've seen even just a little bit of in the past couple of days, too. So I expect us to amp it up into next week and probably give you a lot of fodder for Troll and HGC.
Next week it's going to be crazy, because next week will be post all of the Crucible games, which means all the teams in the Crucible, whether it's originally Open Division teams or Open Division teams are locked if they make it into Premier League. But any of the Premier League teams, whether they make it out, if Naventic, No Tomorrow, Synergy, B Genius, Team Raven, and Blossom, whether they survive or not, there will definitely be changes there. Right? The only question is, are they going to still be in the Premier League when they make those changes, or are they just going to be gone?
And we'll find out next week, hopefully.
Yes. Oh, I'll be talking about that next week.
I know. And I can't wait to. And for those that didn't catch the beginning portion of the show that might be tuning in live, Liqiud is going to be starting up a Nexus Trolls offshoot called Trolling HGC with Bags, who is our guest a couple shows back. So it'll be exclusively talking about HGC as well as the amateur scene, esports heroes. So pretty excited. Definitely tune in. It'll be right after the Nexus Trolls next week on Wednesday. So let's roll into some discussion topics. See, I like this. I feel like we can sit around the coffee table and throw out some ideas. We don't feel like we have to crank through all this content on the show. It gives the show a bit more relaxed feel today. So Mystic, remember you have to talk in the third person because you lost last week's debate.
Just a reminder.
Friendly reminder. We have found ourselves in an interesting meta right now. There's been a lot of dual support teams kicking about. And this seems to be kind of in vogue right now. Is this something that everybody should be looking at when they're playing like unranked or team league or even hero league to go the dual support route? Is this the new meta? Is this what we should be looking at?
Mystic believes that this is the current meta, however, it is falling out of favor. Mystic also thinks that because dual support compositions are so good at fighting, that split push compositions are coming out to counter this, so they just push to win instead of fighting.
And we were actually talking off camera that Mystic was a little bit concerned that this kind of split push meta might be, I mean, it's been in style from time to time, but it's also been called the cancer push, right? And we're a little bit concerned that the game might get away from the team fighting aspect and more into the pushing side of things. We're going to be talking about Cavalier Guest's strategy for Hanamura, which kind of rolls into this in a bit. But do you think this is a bad direction for the game to be going, Mystic? And do you think Blizzard might try and curtail this if they see a push meta kind of come about in response to the dual support, just in response to the fact that pushing is generally a good strategy?
Mystic thinks that Blizzard will take one of two sides. They will either embrace this as a phase of the game, or they will change it so that the main part of the game is team fighting as it usually is.
I feel like you talking in the third person makes you sound more wise. I know you. I don't know what it is. It sounds like you're like altering the tempo of your voice too, just to make sure you're talking in third person. And I'm sitting here like listening so intently to what Mystic has to say next.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the dude from the Matrix, the Matrix guy, the Protector.
His name is. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's always like Mr. Anderson. That guy.
Yeah.
Mystic is like channeling that guy right now, and it's very. I get what you're saying, Daz. I'd like to point something out though with that, like the push strategy, right? And I feel like Blizzard's big on this as a team brawler. That's why Haunted Mines was changed so hard, because it was clear that, like, with Sylvanas, it was completely broken. And I think you've seen them change minions frequently enough where they're like, oh, you know what? The minions are making this. Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Skills in chat. Mr. Smith. Sorry. Totally derailed there for a minute. But I think they'll come out and they'll come down on the side of, we want this to be a team brawler. That's what the game is designed for. That's why Dyrus liked the game and said the game did things for him in League, because it's a team brawler. It's not who can push lanes faster. And I think I would also point out that if you think about it, if you're not on two specific maps, and we'll go over those when we get down to that topic, the reality is if you race, right, like that's your only option at that point. Are we going to race? So let's say we both have decent siege comps. Maybe we both race both lanes. At that point, the other team has one of two options. Either you try to race two and you're both going to just try and go down a lane as fast as you can. That typically tends to not work, because the other team usually gives up after the first fort, comes and wipes you because you have a siege comp, not a fighting comp, right? And so I don't think, other than the two maps we're going to go over in a little bit, I don't think that's going to become a standard tactic. I hope it's a team brawler. I don't want it to be.
Well, I know Blizzard monitors these things closely, and they'll be looking at different comps, their win rates, the styles of play, and they're quick to nerf or alter gameplay when it is like an unfun mechanic. We've talked about this before. Right. Like that's one of the reasons your girl Valera was nerfed there, Liqiud too, right? Because if people are saying, you know, this just isn't fun to play against this character, or this kind of style, they'll be quick to respond with changes. And we've had push metas before, so it's not like we'll get stuck in something if this does become the popular and the successful strategy. The meta's always evolving and it's very cyclical.
That was strictly because people can't learn to play. That was not because she needed to be nerfed. That was people couldn't learn to play against her. She's no different than Nova and Zeratul. She did not need to be nerfed into the ground like she was.
That being said, she still annoys the hell out of me. When I'm playing, occasionally Valera pops out of nowhere, does her little combo on you, takes it from 50 to 0 in next to no time at all, and you know you're cursing at the screen, right?
Rogue life, man. Rogue life.
I guess
I don't know what to tell you.
My stance has been I'd be perfectly happy if stealth was taken out of the game. It's like Mosh Pit in that when you know there's a stealthy around, you have to alter your game style to a point where I feel like there's the fear, right? You can't do what you want to do because there's the fear that ETC is going to slide out of the bush and catch all 5 of you in a mosh pit, or Valera or Zeratul or Nova is going to pop out of nowhere and just combo you down, and you have to stay close to your fort. And I personally don't like that. I mean, I understand why it's in the game, and it can be countered. Like it's not like Zeratul's got the highest win rate in the game or anything, too, right? It can be countered. They do have weaknesses as well. It's just something that I've never really enjoyed playing against. Whenever I see the stealthies in their team, I always give a bit of a groan before the game starts.
So I do want to throw something out there because we talked a little bit about D.Va last week, and we're in our discussion topics. I have been made a believer of D.Va. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I actually enjoy playing her now.
Yeah. So let's roll back a bit because we started talking about dual support meta, and then we rolled into talking about sieging.
It's right. It just all of a sudden we veered left.
Yeah, but veering right again. I've been playing a lot of Team League with my future chair league team, and we have been finding a lot of success with the dual support meta. I know a lot of people are saying, Toronto's not the greatest, but I feel like in a coordinated environment, she's doing pretty well with another support paired with her. What kind of pairings, Mystic, would you say are the good dual support pairings? Obviously, you don't want too much heals, not enough damage. You have to have a combination of things, right? So what should you be looking for when you're trying to draft that dual support? You obviously don't just take two supports blindly. They have to complement each other.
Mystic believes that one main healer is required, and the other healer has to have either tankiness or some sort of utility along with their healing for a dual support composition to succeed.
Okay, so who would you lump into the main healer, and who would you lump into the utility healer role, and where would you take those utility healers, and what kind of comps?
Mystic believes that a high healer after 16 is Lucio. However, the main healers would be Malfurion, Rhaegar, and healers of that nature. Mystic thinks that the utility healers would be Uther, Tyrande, and Kharazim, and those type of healers.
And where would you take those specific healers? Like, obviously, Tyrande's got the nice range stun, which is great for a stun long comp. Same with Uther, too. He's got the stuns as well as the armor that he can dish out like nobody's business. Kharazim, I guess, is more of like the tanky frontliner then for a little extra damage. Is that where you swap him in, I guess? Like, what about like someone like Ariel, too? I've seen Ariel in a lot of dual support comps, or Lily even, too, because she can fulfill the damage role. Is there just like a rule that you have the true healer and then one that can provide the damage or the utility to go along with it? I guess you'd never take a Malf and a Lucio in the same comp, right?
Mm-hmm. Mystic believes that Oriole actually is twofold. While Oriole is both damage and support, she can actually fulfill the role of a full-time healer as well, if played correctly.
So if you had your ideal pairings, then let's put it this way: like, what would your ideal pairings be for dual supports?
Mystic believes that Lucio and Uther work very well together, as well as Malfurion and Tyrande. And those would be really good on almost any map if you were using double support.
So, like, do you think we give Mystic a bit of a break, let him talk in the first person again?
I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying this, and I think it was supposed to be all night. I definitely think by the shakedown we can let him go.
Okay,
though.
well,
but I'm kind of like he sounds like. Look, Mystic is a smart guy.
See, Mystic believes.
He's definitely a smart guy, and I always appreciate his points, right? And I've played with him for a while. He's always on, like he knows what he's talking about. But talking in the third person is just elevating it so much more.
I know. It's hard to want to stop, but I can feel the pain from Mystic's side too. So like I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of Tyrande. She's probably one of my favorite off healers that provides the utility. Just because in the team fight scenario, if you're good at landing your stuns and if you've got someone to follow up with, that's another thing about Tyrande. You really need to have, it's a follow-up stun, not really an engage stun. So I feel like if you have, an ETC or an Anubarak to throw out the initial stun, or someone to throw out an initial root, you toss it down the your stun on that person that you're locking down, you put the D on them, that's pretty much a dead person no matter who it is. So that's one of the reasons I really like Tyrande in a coordinated environment. In an uncoordinated environment, it's a little bit more difficult, and I can see why she might have a little bit of a lower win rate on hot stocks because of it. Liqiud, do you think we're going to see, because Tyrande just got reworked recently, I guess we'll see the new Tyrande this weekend. Do you think we're going to see the new Tyrande this weekend at all?
So that'll be interesting. Yes and no. Oh my god, I just quoted somebody at work. It makes my life really, really sad. So I think there's a good possibility. But the catch with new Tyrande is, especially in a coordinated environment, you've had to have been working on her. And so I guess, by this weekend you'll have had roughly 2 weeks with her. So yeah, potentially we'll see her this weekend. In best of 7, we're going to see a lot of stuff this weekend. So yeah, there's probably a pretty good chance. I don't know that we'll see her with Korea. I think it'll be more likely EU, but I could be wrong on that. I don't have. I'm trying to think back to some stats.
Going to bat for my girl here too. A lot of people have been hacking on her healing output and her damage being lower. Well, in particular, her damage being lower than it was prior to the current patch.
Right.
But I'd like to say that I think her healing is actually pretty good in a team fight situation, because that's where she gets, basically a heal every third shot. She shoots 3 shots, tosses out a heal. It can be fairly high after, I think it's 16, where she gets her higher heal if she's at high health too, and she can put out a lot of high value heals. You look at Lucio's healing numbers or like a Brightwing's healing numbers, and they might look really impressive, but a lot of that's out of fight healing, which isn't as effective as the in-fight stuff, and Tyrande really shines, I think, in the team fights. So I'll stop raving about Tyrande here.
No. I think.
Go ahead, Liqiud.
I was just gonna say, I think Tyrande is strong, and I've been trying to get my wife to play Tyrande for that reason. She loves Hunter, so I'm like, dude.
Little role playing, eh, Liqiud?
She's a freaking Hunter, dude. And my wife likes playing Hunters in WoW, so I'm like, hello? Like, this makes sense. Like, why are we not doing this? But no, she has not done that yet. So,
Mystic, who's your favorite off healer to play? I feel like can we guess? Here, let me and Liqiud try and guess who your favorite off healer is. I'm gonna say Uther.
Are we counting Rhaegar as off healer, or is he still main healer?
He did say main healer when Mystic was saying it. So
all right, then I'm gonna go Tassadar.
Mystic says that Daz is correct.
I got to pick first too. So it's
the new Uther. Yeah, and I wasn't gonna take his, but that makes sense. The new Uther makes sense.
So what's so great about Uther?
Mystic thinks that the new Uther is very powerful in the fact that he can not only give resistances, but he can also output okay burst damage to take down range targets.
You're a holy fireman, aren't you?
All right, so I just want to answer one of the questions that you asked me earlier because I'm playing with MasterLeague.net right now. It looks like we actually will probably see Tyrande in NA before we see her anywhere else. She is the most popular in NA across all patches right now, so I'm going to go with, yeah, we'll probably see her in NA first.
Interesting. So, Liqiud, who's your favorite off healer?
So I, first of all, don't like playing a support.
Doesn't have to be who you're playing.
Right. I know.
Right?
Actually, okay. I'm going to give you the conventional answer of who I'd like to play, and then I'm going to give you the unconventional answer of who I like on my team. The conventional answer would be Karazim. He's the only healer I haven't... whatever he is now. He was my master healer first. I thoroughly enjoyed playing him. I had a lot of fun playing him. And I like him even more now with the Iron Fist build that everybody seems to be going with and is now kind of like the accepted build, right? I would actually put forward a warrior as my favorite secondary healer.
Of course you would, being a tank.
And that would be Zarya. Because I feel like, and I've said this multiple times in casts with Mystic, in esports kind of roundup stuff, and any kind of discussion, whenever anybody asks me this question, my answer is always the best shielding character right now is Zarya. 100%. Now, if you have a truly coordinated team, Medivh takes that slot, because I think between the portal and Medivh's protect, Medivh's just edges her out, but it's barely. It's like 95% to 100% kind of just edges her out. I think Zarya is hands down the best secondary support.
And one thing that maybe a lot of people don't appreciate too, and Cavalier Guest pointed this out in the video that we're going to be talking about shortly here, is just the power that you have in a character that doesn't require mana to support, like a Brightwing or like a Zarya shields. You have a lot more sustain. It's that much longer that you don't have to go back and hearth or go back and tap. You can stay in lane longer, you can soak your experience longer, and there is a lot of value to having that kind of self-sustain, or maybe not self-sustain, but group sustain as a group.
Right. Well, the reason I prefer Zarya in that role is the additional stuff that she brings to the table. I feel like is stronger than Tassadar. The damage she does, her damage output is higher, and her ultimates, I think, get more use, especially out of a wombo-oriented team. So,
all right. So, I mean, we're going to talk about the counter dual support, but I think we already kind of talked about that too. It's the push. And I've heard other people talk about the same thing. Mystic was mentioning it before. If you see someone, drafting the dual support set up, the dual support is really great in teamfight situations, but where they're lacking typically is in the lane clear. So if you can out push them, that's a really good counter to this dual support. Would you say that's an accurate assessment, Mystic?
Mystic agrees.
Two wise words, sir. Okay, let's move along to talk about Cavalier Guests, and I think we can attribute this strategy to him. He's the one who's at least popularized it on Hanamura, because he has released like a video that he did with his just a bunch of friends. They were queuing in together and they played Hanamura, and he has an absurdly high win rate as a 5 or 4 stack on Hanamura, with basically employing this strategy. The link for this is in the show notes if you're interested to watch it. But he takes a team and makes sure he builds it around a 5-lane push comp. So the idea is you completely ignore one lane, you take all of your team and you push one lane. So you say, well, Daz, what about soaking experience? Like, it's been drilled into us since we've started playing this game. You need to soak experience if you want to make sure you don't lose the level lead. Well, one of the advantages you have here is, well, two things. You've got camps that can supplement experience, but because it's a 2-lane map, you're only losing 1 lane of experience, and you can counter that by actually getting structures which are fixed experience, not scaling over time. So if you get them early enough, it can pop you up and artificially boost your level, and you can actually get a level lead based on this. The other thing about this map too is if you keep pushing lane, not only if you get a fort or a keep, do you get one extra shot on your next payload delivery, but if you clear a lane out fully, you start getting sappers, which put pressure on the lane. Those sappers, if they make it to the termination point in the lane, they'll actually fire on core, and you only need 7 shots on the core. So his idea is completely ignore the payloads. His argument is, you know what? The payloads don't give you experience. You don't need them to progress in the game, and progressing and getting a level lead is so important to get an advantage in this game that you can ignore the payloads until the end. And so I mentioned before you want a 5-man push comp. So what his comp looked like, he said there's a few kind of key elements. First off, you need a good bribery hero. Brightwing is the best in Cavalier Guest's mind. He said Falstad is a close second. He doesn't like Nova because Nova doesn't have push power here, or doesn't have that utility that you can bring. He did say that Vikings could work as well if you have like a good Vikings player, which is sometimes tough to find. But Brightwing's great because she can get a lot of bribery stacks. The support camp only requires 1 stack of bribery to take it. And then you get a really powerful support item, which almost acts as a secondary support on its own because it gives you a massive heal over time in that kind of sustained environment, which you are going to be doing because you're not really team fighting, you're sustaining a lane. He says, okay, you take Brightwing or Falstad, you want 2 supports so you can make sure you don't have to leave lane, because if you do have to leave the lane, you're losing out on the push power, and that's what you want to do. You want to have a comp that can constantly stay in the lane. Another key is to have some sort of hero with pushing power, like a Sylvanas to disable the towers, Asmodan to really heavily push the lane. He can also put his Demonic Warriors on the alternate lane too to get a little bit of extra XP from that way as well. Hammer is another one he pointed out there, as well as even like a Chen or an Illidan too, who can kind of tank some tower shots with either evasion or shielding. So that's more or less the comp. You can base it around that. You're pushing, and when you're not pushing, if the other team gets a bit of an advantage, you can go back. Brightwing can take the support camp, can do some bribing some camps. Sonya is another great one on this level too because she's got the self-sustain. She can go solo a camp too, like maybe you lost a player, like you got picked or something. Sonya goes back, does one of the three-man camps. Brightwing goes back, does the support camp, gets you a lot of experience. You rinse and repeat, you start pushing down the lane again. And I actually tried this strat with my Team League team, and it worked surprisingly well. I don't think we accomplished it as well as Cavalier Guest's team did. We were down 7-2 on the tower shot, or the shots on the core, near the end of the game, but we had a situation where we had every single structure dead. So we had a 5-shot payload that we got to escort in, shot on the core. Suddenly it's a 2-2 game. We had the pressure from the sappers on both lanes, which they constantly had to go back and respond to because we already had a superior pushing comp, so we could clear those lanes faster. Plus we had the extra sapper putting pressure on those lanes. And while that happened, we got the boss, we got a free payload. 2 payloads and a boss in that situation wins the game. So Mystic, I know you're not necessarily the biggest fan of the strategy, but it is potentially a successful one. Like you're a little bit worried that if this becomes the accepted strategy, that kind of makes this map not fun if everyone's doing it. And also too, like I don't know how this breaks down if both teams are trying it at the same time. But do you think this is the successful strat? I think Cavalier Guest said 90 to 100% win rate was what he was looking at using this strategy.
While Mystic does not agree with the strat, he does think that it is the best strat for the map at this moment in time.
So I want to put something out there. Part of this relies on the XP you get from camps to keep you in proximity and not get like down a tier, right? If you go back and you look at some of the comments in that Reddit thread, Cavalier Guest says, yeah, it's important that you continue to take camps throughout this because just the structures alone is not going to be enough to keep you up in XP. It will keep you close, but it will not keep you even or even ahead. You have to take camps reliably. The quickest way for Blizzard to fix this is just reduce the amount of XP you get per camp. And then all of a sudden, this strategy will still work to a degree, but then it becomes more like the race strategy that we were describing before the show.
The interesting thing with this strategy is if one team's got, let's do a little role play. The team that you're playing against is pushing 5 men in a lane. You're sitting there, maybe start with a 4-1 or a 2-3 split.
Right.
You see that, you're like, to respond to that, to leave one person in the off lane, you're either going to have a 5v4 and maybe get the XP lead, but they're going to be out pushing you likely because they got a push comp in the 5v4 situation and overwhelming you. And then you're going to feel like, well, as that man in the off lane, you might have to come over and help, and then you're playing right into their hands almost.
So while I agree with that, I also think, so there's two ways. The right way to deal with this is 5v5 and pick off their supports. If you can 5v5 and pick off their supports, then you can split one to keep soaking, and you can just harass, right? And so you have to have a highly mobile character at that point, like a Genji or oh man, why am I going blank?
Tracer.
A Falstad works good. Tracer works good. Right, anybody that can move quickly. The other thing I would point out is if you see a team drafting that way, just immediately grab Vikings. Even if you don't have a great Vikings player, you have a mediocre Vikings player. A mediocre Vikings player can leave one Viking in a lane to sit there and soak, while the other two Vikings stay with the group and you 5-on-6. Right? And so, yeah, you're still 5 on something, but you're not losing any XP because you have your one single Viking sitting there soaking, and you're going to team wipe them at that point, in theory, right?
And a Balog, if Balog's the one with the sword, right? Anyways, the one with the sword can actually push lane pretty heavily, too.
Yeah, the problem there is then you have to micro them a little bit, right? And so that's a little harder if you're team fighting.
Well, the
Maybe,
nice thing
I
is
don't
if you know the other 5 are like constantly going to be in one lane, you don't have to worry about microing as much because you can just kind of sit
Right.
in there and he'll do his thing too, which is a nice. As a Viking player, you just let your third guy do his thing, and the other two can sit up in lane and work it.
Will he push without interaction from you?
Well, he'll sit there and he'll shoot at the lane.
Yeah, he'll
right?
throw
So-
his sword at it, right?
Yeah, so you can position yourself, somewhat. I mean, obviously there's going to be some level of micro required, but if you put him in the middle of the lane, you don't have to worry about hiding him in a bush when there's someone coming by.
Right, because the other 5 are going to be in the bottom, right? And that was my point, right? The other 5 are here. Stick one dude in lane, and you're probably right. That's probably the right one to stick in lane. Take the other 2, go as 6 to, let's say they're pushing bottom lane. Take the engagement as 6. You're still getting XP. You're now getting the same level of XP that they are, only now you're rolling the team up, right? It's not a perfect strategy. I think ultimately Blizzard needs to just reduce the amount of XP you get for camps, because really that's a lot of what enables this. If you do that, then you're back down to the Braxis problem, right? Do you push a lane? We see that in pro games right now. Sometimes you'll see them race to the first fort, right? Okay, you got the first fort, but then everybody backs off because they realize you're not going to race past the first fort. Mm-hmm. It's, can I get the first fort down so that my first Zerg wave is going to do more damage than your first Zerg wave, right? But it's not a 5-man push like forever at that point, like you're seeing on Hanamura right now. So
it'll be interesting to see. Like, I feel like now that this is out there, and it'll start being seen a little bit more frequently because it was a very popular post, and Cavalier Guest is a very respected statistician? Strategist. The strategist for the game, that I think we're going to start seeing this. It's not going to be like you might see it once in a blue moon. I think a lot of people are going to be trying this kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see, like, once you get the mirror push comps, how this is actually going to shake out too, because this initially just had a bit of surprise power, being a bit more of, like a novel way to go about it, something that people weren't really thinking about. And Hanamura still is getting figured out. I mean, maybe this is having it figured out, but a lot of people are still trying to determine the best strategies outside of this to employ. Okay, our next topic we want to talk about, a new Barak. Damn, is that bug annoying?
Well, you can't take every tank away. Come on.
It's gotten to the point. I'm not saying we should take him away. It's just gotten to the point where whenever I'm playing in Team League, we say we're either taking a new Barak or we're banning him, like pretty much right off the bat. We used to always, like I'd say just a few weeks ago, I'd be like, okay, well, what's the best ban for this map? Now it's just, how are we going to deal with a new Barak? Because now, especially now that ETC's gone, and I feel like Murden's not very high up in the meta now too, because of his low win rate. It scared a lot of people off. He's one of the best, well, arguably the best engaged tanks that we have, and he can harass a backline. He can engage from quite a distance, something that ETC used to be able to fill that role too, to a certain degree. So I guess my question for both of you guys is: Anubrak the number one tank in the game right now? Is he first ban worthy, first pick worthy? Let's start with Mystic.
Mystic believes that he is. However, the other tanks that are not as good as Anubrak are fairly close behind, while he is the best tank in the game right now. He's not by that big of a margin.
Because I feel like he's got good engage, good disruption, pretty decent damage too. He can get in, get out. He can disrupt the backline. He can just do so many things. This is why we tend to either pick him or avoid him. What do you think, Liqiud?
I mean, if you look, all right. So first, I think he is currently the best tank available. I don't necessarily think he's first ban worthy, because banning him doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna save yourself a headache. I think right now he is definitely the most popular. He has a 66.5% pick rate compared to the next highest true tank, which is Diablo, is 26.6. So, like, Anubrak is clearly the tank of choice right now. He's also got the win rate of choice right now for tanks. But I don't know that he's first ban worthy.
So, like, what happened here? Because Anubrak used to be the anti-mage niche tank, and suddenly, remember what it was like maybe a couple months ago.
I do.
They put all this armor in.
When they put my cow out to pasture.
They put him out to pasture. They gave everyone different armor sticks. They're like, hey, Joanna's gonna be the anti AA tank. Like,
they killed off Tyrael.
Yeah, they did kill off Tyrael, but I feel like
just dead.
Picking Joanna, you don't necessarily pick her only into AA comps. You pick her for other reasons too. Her wave clear, her good peel and such.
Right.
And Anubrak, I feel, has kind of gotten that way too. He's a jack of all trades, where he's supposed to be a master of one, right?
I think I just broke my Tyrael figure. So here's the thing. They nerfed all the rest of the tanks into the ground, and Anubrak is the last man standing. Last bug. I that sounds like fatalistic, and it is to a degree. Because, all right, let me pull the list back up so I'm not speaking out of turn. Like, nothing's wrong with Muradin. Muradin's still a great tank. But Anubrak does everything just slightly better. The same is true for ETC. ETC is not a bad tank. I think they nerfed him too hard, but ETC is not a bad tank. But again, Anubrak does things better. Stitches has a low popularity but a high win rate right now, and you can see lots of pros doing things with Stitches that are impressive, right? So I think we're in a situation where, and I hate to say it because I've hated the Anubrak change that they made to him 8 months ago. I think I'd have to look at heroespatches.com to figure it out exactly, but I don't like. He's just a solid all-around tank. Even with, yes, he has more protection, more, I hate that they call it spell armor. I think Mystic made this point at one point a couple shows ago. It should really be called ability armor, because everybody has abilities. And Anubrak benefits from having that armor.
That's true. Like, I can't think of any heroes that don't have any sort of mixed, ability and AA power, right? Like, your traditional AA heroes, like even like a Zul'jin or a Vala or even a Raynor. I guess Raynor's probably the closest you get to being a pure AA hero, but like Zul'jin's got his axes and everything too, right? That he throws around, and Vala's got her multi-shot and her Q. So yeah, I guess maybe that's just it. Just spell armor is more effective than physical armor in general. It'd be great to be able to see a breakdown in a game of everyone's damage based on abilities and auto attacks. I think that'd be a great thing to analyze. Take it. Maybe I'm not sure if you can take that out of the log files, but just to see, like, I'm sure Blizzard does this all the time, which is why they give ability power buffs less of a buff than a attack power when you've got those kind of
Right.
traits out there in talent trees.
So, I just want to throw this out there. Since September of last year, when they made Anubrak no longer invulnerable during Burrow Charge, I've been sad for him. But he's still the number 1 tank in the game right now, and I've played a lot of him because he is. But yeah, it's been sad.
Okay, so let's say you're like Liquid. You don't think Anubrak is first ban worthy, so you let it slide. The other team gets first pick. They take Anubrak. How do you counter him? We know that he's got the spell armor side to him, but is that just simple as just take some more AA heroes? Because he doesn't have a huge health pool. I mean, he's got his shielding, and he's got other ways to mitigate the damage and give survivability, healing through his beetles and such, and his ultimate potentially if he takes his Locust Swarm. Like, what's the way to counter Mystic? How do you counter a Nubrak? Diving your healer, diving your backline, being super annoying, cocooning, whoever you don't want cocooned.
Mystic believes that the counter to a Nubrak is to make your backline not immobile. So to make them mobile, pick Lucio or Karazim, and backline like of that nature, such as Vala as well, because she has Vol. So that Anubrak has a harder time diving your backline, and he has to stick to fighting the front line, which he is much less effective at doing.
And is it as simple as, like, as soon as a Nubrak comes in, you collapse on him? Because generally the rest of the team is right behind him, too.
If you do have... Mystic believes that if you do have a lot of damage dealers, such as... that are not mages, specifically, then you have the ability to collapse on him and perhaps kill him fairly quickly.
Yeah, because you've got a very short window to kill him, too, because, if he comes in, he can potentially burrow out pretty quickly, depending on this talent tree, too, that he takes. What do you think, Liquid? What's when you're playing a Nubrak, because you play probably more Nubrak than both me and Mystic combined, what's the most annoying thing you come across in the enemy team comps that you don't like seeing when you're playing a Nubrak?
Honestly, it's not the enemy team. It's my team not wanting to dive when I go in. Like, that's the biggest problem. But if you ignore kind of the pub league and you're talking about like strictly 5-man teams where you have coordination, you're on comms. Mystic's right. Like, really mobile heroes are really annoying. Like, his stun is not instant, and so a Lucio, a Karazim, they can get out of the way of the barb spikes. They can get out of the way of the charge or burrow charge if they're fast enough. So those are annoying. Auto attackers are really annoying. Like Vala can wreck in a Nubrak's day, especially if she runs AA build. I know that's not the new hotness right now, but if you're a Vala player and you're playing against a Nubrak, play the AA build. Like, your team will appreciate it, because at 10 hatred stacks plus the 10 additional stacks that you can get later if you talent into it, like, you just wreck at that point. Like, you just do.
And you brought up a really good point there, too. You need the rest of your team to follow up for a Nubrak to be effective when he's diving, because he is that engaged tool for your team. And you mentioned Diablo is, one of the other high tanks, too, and maybe that's because, like, well, I'm sure it is because their engage is so valued for initiating the team fight, getting that early kill right off the bat, whereas, your other tanks, which have more or less recently been nerfed, put out to pasture, as Liquid would say, these are the ones that are rising to the top.
Yeah.
Okay, Mystic, I think we can get you off the hook now from talking in the third person as your punishment for losing last week's debate, because right now we have Mystic's Shakedown, and I'm going to cue the bumper.
Mystic, I require service of you. I come to you as a friend, asking you to shake down this situation for me.
So Mystic, shake down the situation for us.
Mystic believes that he should be going all the way through with this.
Yes!
He's not letting us. He's not going off.
That's my man right there, man.
We dangled the carrot, dangled the rope to get you out of that well, but you decided not to take it. I approve. Stick through it then, sir.
Mystic's topic for this week's Shakedown is mindset. Mystic believes that having a positive attitude is step one to having a good mindset. Mystic believes that a positive attitude will keep you out of the quote-unquote salt mines.
Is that a coined term by Mystic?
Mystic believes so, but it has been used before, so... Mystic's second mindset tip is persistence. Mystic thinks that people should not give up halfway through doing something, whether it be outside of the game or during the game. Mystic believes that the comeback mechanics in this game are very, very forgiving, so that you can always come back, no matter what the situation is. Mystic's third tip is you should always look to improve yourself, and improving yourself, you will get to wherever you will want to be, whether it takes a long time or a very short time. Mystic's fourth mindset tip is to find out why things are and why people think that they are that way. Mystic thinks that this goes hand in hand with the third tip. If you find out why things are, you will learn why people do such things and how to either circumvent them or add them to your playstyle. Now, Mystic's final tip for mindset is to try new talents and builds. Mystic thinks that while Cavalier guests build the... Mystic thinks that while he disagrees with Cavalier Guest's push composition, he does think that it is very effective and was really good on Cavalier's Guest's part to find and refine this composition.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. Your first point there, positive attitude, staying out of the salt mines. I am a firm believer that some of those people that you come across in Hero League that have very good mechanics, maybe have very good game skill and game knowledge, they are stuck where they are, and they can be pretty vocal about how they're not happy with the tier they're stuck in, because they get so salty and outward and put a lot of negative chatter into the chat. You almost want to sit there, but you don't want to even bother like spending the time trying to lecture people. Be like, listen, dude, or whoever you are, like just if you have a positive attitude, you're gonna end up doing a lot better in this game, because you're gonna stop all the other people from tilting too. And a positive comment pointing out like the benefits of what your team might have did, like, you know, congratulating them on a great save or a great kill, that can snowball into a good thing. It can make everyone play a little bit better instead of squeezing the stick a little tighter, you know. So I'm a big advocate of all the points you mentioned, especially that one. Okay, so we've got our final segment for today, and we're only an hour and 15 minutes into the show. Gotta be a new record for us. Dr. Daz's Science Lab, which has been on hiatus for a while, but we've got a new one this week, so cue the bumper.
Welcome to Dr. Daz's Science Lab.
Okay, so with the recent buff to Illidan's Season's Marksman talent at level 1, what I wanted to do this week at Dr. Daz's Science Lab was to see how that talent scales through the game and examine its value over time. It's always been a talent that I haven't really examined too deeply. A lot of people call it, you know, late game talent, and I wanted to figure out exactly how it scaled into the late game. So an important thing is to note before we start this discussion is that hero power scales at 4% per level. It's very crucial to know that, and I know it's pretty common knowledge, but maybe not everyone does know that. Now the question is, does Season's Marksman scale at a faster rate than 4% or slower per level? Because if it's faster, it'll be a better late game talent. If it's slower, it might be a garbage talent or a better early game talent. So the assumption is that it's faster, because everyone always calls Season's Marksman a late game talent because it scales indefinitely into the late game. But is this true in all cases? Because there's different levels of skill. There's different levels of soak too. For those of you who don't know, Seasoned Marksman, you get increased attack damage to your basic attacks based on the number of minions that die near you. Basically, minions that you get XP from as your body's soaking. So some people are more effective at it. Some people can soak 2 lanes. Some people can only soak 1. Some people can't even soak 1 lane effectively. So how does this stack up if you're efficiently or not efficiently, or if you're a pro level stacker? So some more important information to note before we get into the actual analysis of this. The first minion wave hits the middle lane at about 30 seconds, and minion waves spawn 30 seconds apart from each other like clockwork. There's 7 minions per wave, and that's until catapults spawn, but just for the sake of the argument, I think it's something I can't ignore for the sake of the argument. I just ignored catapults in this discussion because it just complicated things. I'm not writing a PhD on this topic. I just want to do a quick
come
rundown.
on.
I know. Well, as much as I'd love to go back to school for 4 years to write a PhD on Seasons Marksman, I think I'll make a few assumptions to make this a bit more of a shorter summary. Okay, so a big impact, as I mentioned before, on this result is how effectively you can soak. So can you soak an entire lane every time the lane hits? Can you soak more than 1 lane throughout the course of the game? An important thing to note, too, is that these minion wave spawning that I mentioned before, that's on a fixed time scale. Every 30 seconds, there's going to be a minion wave hitting the middle, or at least spawning at the core. However, to kind of put a little bit of a wrench into this analysis, leveling, team leveling, hero leveling varies drastically depending on how your game's going. You might level extremely quickly. Maybe you're pushing out really fast, you're soaking all the lanes, you're getting a lot of kills. Maybe you're not, you're stalemated, you're just kind of maybe you're getting your soak, maybe you're missing soak while you're fighting over objectives. So how did I count this? I took 10 of my games. I'm a platinum level player according to Heroes of the Storm and my Hero League rank. So take this with a grain of salt. It obviously varies on your league and such. I took 10 games and I averaged the amount of time it took to get to each level. I sat there and literally recorded the time it took for me as well as our opponents to get to each level, and I averaged those out so I get a little bit of a statistical bit to it. So I had a bit more of a set scale on how I'm assuming leveling scales over time. Okay, so an important thing I haven't even talked about yet too, Seasons Marksman is also affected by takedown participation. So if you take down heroes, Illidan gets 1 additional base attack damage per hero takedown. By the way, it's 0.2 per minion kill in his region. So that's something else we had to look at as well in this science lab experiment, because we have to make an assumption on takedowns as well. Now, I created a couple scenarios. I'd made a conservative scenario. You might agree, you might disagree with me, this being a conservative scenario, but this is the one that I picked. So I said, okay, if you're a hero, you're Illidan, Raynor, anyone with Seasons Marksman, and you're soaking 1 lane consistently on average throughout the course of the game. If you're a pro, maybe you can soak more than 1. If you're not so pro, maybe you're not even soaking 1 fully. But that's the assumption that I made based on this. And my other assumption is that you're getting 0.3 takedowns per level. That's about 7 takedowns per level 20. A lot of people might say that's a little too conservative, but if you look at pro games, that might be overestimating too. But 0.3 takedowns per level seem to be pretty reasonable here. Okay, so here is what this analysis and this scenario came out with for Illidan. So his increase to basic attack at level 5, due to Seasons Marksman, given the scenario, was 10%. So he got an additional 10% bonus to his basic attack, being able to soak and participate in the takedowns, as I've mentioned here. By level 10, that jumps to 37%. Note that's because Illidan also has, once you get 20 basic attack damage, you get a bonus 20, so it kind of spikes a little bit, probably around level 9 or 10. So 37% bonus attack damage. That gets even higher the later game you go. You get to level 20, we're looking at 44% basic attack damage bonus. So this increases faster than your hero leveling does, given the assumptions that I made. And that's soaking 1 lane only with 0.3 takedowns. It gets even crazier if you can soak more than that. So I also looked at Raynor too, because Raynor has a couple things hurting him compared to Illidan too. His basic attack is higher to start off with. And one thing I didn't mention about Illidan, he gets lifesteal based on his attack damage too. So you get a little bit more self-sustain there. But Raynor's higher basic attack means that Seasons Marksman doesn't give him as much percentage increase to his basic attack that Illidan would get. It's each 0.2 is only a smaller fraction of his basic attack damage because it's higher to begin with. Not to mention, Raynor only gets 0.5 instead of 1 attack damage increase per takedown, and he doesn't get a bonus 20 damage once he hits 20 basic attack damage increase. He instead gets an attack speed increase once he hits 40, which I'll leave that to another discussion for another time. So he inherently has less impact. This has less impact on Raynor. Looking at it at how it ends up working out at level 5, given the same scenario I described for Illidan, he gets 6% increase to his basic attack damage at level 5. This scales up to 12% level 10, 16% level 15, 19% level 20. And just a reminder, that's 44% in comparison to Illidan's level 20. So while it does scale good into the late game, and it scales faster than his ability powers and just his general hero power, it still is a late game talent and does end up being a good talent in that scenario. Okay, so I looked at just a couple more things. I looked at the worst case scenario. Let's say you don't participate in any takedowns and you're a garbage soaker. You only soak half the lane. Turns out you still get more than a 4% increase in basic attack damage. And that starts about level 5. Once you get past level 5, it does scale better and it ends up being an okay talent. So even if you are really bad at soaking those lanes, you said, oh, hey, Daz, that scenario you came up with, I don't know if I can get that to that level. Well, hey, it's still a pretty good talent to take, even if you aren't soaking effectively. Now, if you go on the other end of the spectrum, you look at the crazy case, you can soak 2 lanes, you get 1 takedown per level. That's probably crazy. I'm not sure if anyone can do that, even the pros. Illidan at level 20 would have an 81% attack damage bonus, and Raynor's looking at about 40%. So my conclusion to all this, of course, you got to look at the talents it's up against, but these do scale well. They are late game talents, and they do scale effectively, even in the early game too. So that has been Dr. Daz's Science Lab. What do you guys think about Season's Marksman in general? Mystic, what do you think?
Mystic believes that it is good for the game, as it allows you to scale up in the game even if you are behind in levels. As long as you get the soak from the various lanes, then you do have a chance for more comeback potential with that.
How about you, Liqiud?
I like it, especially on Raynor personally. So yeah, I agree with Mystic too. It definitely gives you potential to scale even if you're down in levels. So
yeah, the one thing I kind of mentioned just in passing on Illidan too is you get the additional lifesteal based on your basic attacks too from that. So not only are you getting a sizable increase percentage-wise to your basic attack, you're getting an increase in lifesteal. But still, I think if I remember correctly, and I don't have Hot Slogs open right now, it still isn't the number 1 pick talent on the tier. People are still going for his alternate talents, and I'm sure there's a good reason for those. Those are very good talents to take. But do you think there's an argument for Illidan to take his Season's Marksman, even especially looking at some of these numbers on maybe maps where you can soak 2 lanes?
Mystic believes that if you take the Seasoned Marksman for Illidan, it synergizes very well with Blades of Azzinoth, which can be taken at level 16, which increases your attack damage by 75%. So
yeah, I can see that being very difficult to kill. I guess we don't really see Illidan too much in the meta right now, so it's kind of hard to get a grasp on what necessarily are the good talents for him to take, since he has fallen off significantly in recent weeks. Okay, well guys, this might go on record as the shortest show in Trolls history. Liqiud, did you want to say something there, bud?
I did. So I was going to point out that it is picked 28% of the time. The other 2 talents are clearly beating it, with a 36 and a 35% between them collectively.
Fairly close though. So situation.
Right, and Blades of Azzinoth again is only picked 25% of the time, with the other 2 talents taking 48 and 26%. Respectively. So yeah, it's not very highly picked, but I gotta believe maps like Infernal Shrines, where you rotate between the 2 lanes. I would have thought we would have seen it be higher there, but it's not any higher there. 27.1. Maybe Tomb of the Spider Queen. Oh, was that? Yeah, you said Tomb, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Tomb is at 35.1. It's the second most popular talent, only losing to Immolation at 35.7. So that makes sense on Illidan, but I think on some other heroes it makes more sense. I think if you look at Raynor, let's see here. I want to do all maps for Raynor. I don't want to do a specific map. Raynor's like 77%.
a lot of it ends up being the talents it's up against as well.
Right,
which obviously has an impact because, like the numbers I mentioned, the Science Lab look good for Illidan, but for Raynor, like what else are you going to take at level 1? You might give me more if you've got, like a Valyria and a Nova on the other team. You're worried about being a little tankier, for instance.
So Falstad's a good example, though. So Gathering Storm and Wingman are both good talents on level 1, right? Season's Markman still comes out ahead there. It seems to be only like Illidan where it doesn't come out ahead right now.
It's funny too because not only does he get the attack, he gets the extra sustain from it too, and the numbers are more beneficial too. He gets the little boost at 20 basic attack.
Right.
You get that pretty early, and then also he has 1 per takedown in a quick match or unranked environment. There typically are a lot of takedowns too, so that scales pretty quickly. Okay, well, I think we're going to end the show here. Mystic approves, Mystic believes. Enough. This is probably a good spot to end. Thank you, Mystic, for being such a good sport and speaking in the third person for the whole show. So thanks, everybody, for listening to the Nexus Trolls, the Heroes of the Storm podcast. We stream this live on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Nexus Trolls, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Liqiud, where can folks find you on this fabulous thing called the interwebs?
So the best place to look for me is Twitter. It's at LIQIUDGG. That's at LiquidGG. I tweet when I'm going live to stream. I tweet when we're going live with this show. I will tweet when we're going live with Troll and HGC next week. I tweet when I go live on 323 Weekly. So, yeah, Twitter's really the best place to keep up with me. Plus, you'll see random retweets and tweets about things going on in the esports world anyway. So
Mystic, where can people find you online, sir?
Mystic can be found at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
I don't think you messed up once. I gotta say, that's very impressive.
He didn't. He made it the whole way without messing up.
That's your mechanical skill shining right there, which is, I guess, apparently more important than game knowledge, right?
According to Twitter, it is.
And you can find me at DazHots on Twitter. Thanks again to all our patron supporters. If you like this show and you're looking for a way to support us, you can always do so at patreon.com/the Nexus Trolls. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. And roll over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, put down a comment. If you put it on a comment, we'll make sure we feature on the site. Keep a regular eye on the Canadian and American iTunes stores. If you put it somewhere else, let me know so I can crawl over to that country and see the comment from there. You can also visit our website at www.thenexustrolls.com to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which can be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements about the show and general Heroes of the Storm news, you can follow us on Twitter at the Nexus Trolls. You can also join us in-game and some of our listeners as well at /join space the Nexus Trolls. You just type that into chat. You'll join the Nexus Trolls chat channel. We also tend to hang around there after the show for after-show games as well. So if you're interested, pop over there after the show is done and see if you can hit us up for a game there. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at podcast@thenexustrolls.com. So, go ahead.
I have just one thing I want to throw out there. There's 2 other places that you can find us that are, I think, very important. There are. One of them will be on our tournament that we're running on June 24th. Yes. Creators of the Storm. Check out www.creatorsofthestorm.com for information on that tournament coming June 24th.
And we're working on an interesting little promo video for that that we're going to be posting probably on Reddit. I'm putting on creatorsofthestorm.com within the next couple of days, too. So keep an eye out for that. Mystic has taken a look at it, said it looks like an 80s commercial bit. So I think we might as well roll with that and just make it as cheesy as possible, right?
Right. So then the other thing I was going to point out is you can find us at BlizzCon. We will all be out there as a group.
Yes. And if you're heading to BlizzCon, make sure you go a day early because on Thursday night, there is, oh my God, I'm blanking, Con Before the Storm. It's a great little pre-convention meetup for a whole bunch of podcasters, as well as an event for artists to like show off their wares and just meet other people in the community and other lovers of the game. So head over to, I think, Con Before the Storm. It's conbeforestorm.com. They've got a Kickstarter page, and there's a lot of information up there as well for the event. It's an absolutely free event. They do have a Kickstarter which you can donate to if you're looking for specific rewards and stuff, but it's not mandatory. But obviously, it's very appreciated. We'll be there as well as at BlizzCon, hopefully with t-shirts in tow. We're going to get some t-shirts, I think, made for our listeners.
So there's another one that we will
You'll
hopefully
find
we're going to be
everywhere.
going to. No. So I wanted to bring this up. So I'm dropping this news to Daz in front of all of y'all. There's a DitchCon 2017, which is the Wednesday night pre-BlizzCon party.
Oh
that
my! Maybe I should make.
We'll
my...
be in town for. Maybe we should go to.
I haven't scheduled my flight yet, so maybe I should do it a few hours earlier than I was intending. Sure, why not? In Anaheim, might as well do everything. Might as well do everything possible. Okay, but everybody, thanks for listening. Mystic and Liquid, thanks as always for helping me host. Have a great week, guys.